Elvis didn't die, but instead he took on the guise of an Elvis impersonator. And what if many years later, an elderly Elvis was living in a retirement home with cancer growing on his, hound dog? And to make matters worse, he also has to battle an evil demonic mummy. Well, this is the premise of the uniquely titled BubbaHoTep. Released in 2002, BubbaHoTep sees the legendary Bruce Campbell fit into the blue suede shoes of an older Elvis, who must confront an ancient Egyptian mummy who is feeding on the souls of the inhabitants of the retirement home. But it's not all bad, as Elvis has JFK to help him, played by Ozzie Davis, who claims that he is the real JFK and that after an assassination attempt, he had his skin dyed. In this classic cult movie, which is honestly so absurd, it's hard to not get intrigued by it and even love it. So it's time to return to this obscure movie from the early 2000s as we look into 10 things that you didn't know about BubbaHoTep. So come on, don't be a stranger. Let's check it out. I'm making Pop-Tarts. Number 10, based on a book. BubbaHoTep is based on a novella of the same name. The story of Elvis battling a mummy was written by American author and martial arts instructor Joe R. Lansdale. He had previously written for the Batman animated series. Hey, that's pretty cool. He got the idea from watching the original 1932 The Mummy, in which the main villain was Imhotep. And Lansdale thought to himself, if the mummy was Texan, he'll be called BubbaHoTep, as Bubba is the name to describe, quote, a good old boy from the southern parts of America. BubbaHoTep was published in 1994 and was part of an anthology book of Elvis Presley stories called The King is Dead. However, later on it would be published in different formats. There are some differences between the novella and film. For example, the novella had a third character who also claimed to be a well-known person from long ago, an elderly lady who claimed to be John Dillinger post-sex change. This story, which is known as an alternative history story, was intended to be a fun, ridiculous caper. However, not everyone was laughing, as an American book reviewing magazine called Kirkus gave it a poor review and felt that it was written badly with too much focus being put on Elvis's package. But, as time had proven, it was clear that someone out there did like it. Number 9. The Phantasm Connection. So American filmmaker Don Coscarelli must have been a fan of the BubbaHoTep short story and wanted to see it as a movie, as he came on board as the movie's director, scriptwriter, and co-producer. In fact, BubbaHoTep's original author, Joe Lansdale, was kind of surprised that someone would actually want to adapt his short story into a movie. Yeah, he did not see that coming. I guess an elderly Elvis fighting supernatural forces isn't your conventional movie plot. Don Coscarelli already had his own ties to the horror genre, as he had created and directed the Phantasm series. By the time of directing BubbaHoTep, he had already directed 4 Phantasm movies and had another one up his sleeve. In fact, many of the film crew of BubbaHoTep had previously worked on the Phantasm movies, and BubbaHoTep even featured several actors from the Phantasm films, including Reggie Bannister, who played Reggie in the Phantasm series. So, in a weird way, BubbaHoTep and Phantasm are like cousins. Let's not forget, of course, that Dan Coscarelli also directed the sword and sorcery fantasy movie Beastmaster. Number 8. It had a tiny budget. 2002 saw many big blockbuster movies, such as Spider-Man, Attack of the Clones, Die Another Day, and Lord of the Rings: The Two Towers. However, BubbaHoTep was not going to share those movies' extravagant budgets. Hey, I guess at the time, there just wasn't a demand to see Elvis with an infected willy duke it out with an evil mummy. even though there should have been, as the budget of BubbaHoTep was only $500,000. Now, to put this budget into perspective, according to IMDb, at the time when BubbaHoTep was filmed, $500,000 was only 1% of an average big-budget Hollywood movie, namely the previous ones mentioned. So BubbaHoTep was really working on a micro budget. But to be honest, the movie in no way looks or feels like it had a tiny budget, so kudos to them for actually making it look like a big budget movie. In fact, the budget was so small, the production couldn't afford to use any Elvis songs. And despite the movie being about Elvis, nope, not one song could be used, as just using one Elvis song would have taken away most of the movie's budget. And given that the budget was $500,000, there wasn't a lot to spare. Number 7, Bruce Campbell's biggest concern. BubbaHoTep was a movie that was destined to be a cult movie, and whom else better to cast as the fictional Elvis than the king of cult B movies himself, Bruce Campbell, aka Ash Williams from the Evil Dead series. According to HalloweenAllYearRound.com, when the legendary Bruce Campbell first read the script for BubbaHoTep, his immediate question was, is the movie actually going to show the character's disease ding dong? Yeah, that was his biggest worry. Are we actually going to see it? At the time of filming, Campbell would have been about 43 to 44 years old, but his Elvis character would have had to have been about 66 years old. So in order for Campbell to look like an elderly Elvis, he would have to spend 3 hours in the makeup chair having his makeup applied to him. And to me, he doesn't quite look like Elvis. But I think that's okay. It kind of adds to the ambiguity as to whether or not this is actually Elvis or just a crazy person. During the filming, Campbell was actually trapped on his bed due to all the heavy cameras, lighting, and other equipment, in which he actually had to take a piss, but was unable to get off the bed thanks to all the stuff on him, so he actually used the bedpan that was seen in the movie. You know, just throwing it out there. From being an actor who's been drenched in movie blood to having to actually use a bedpan, Bruce Campbell sure is an actor who's been through some crazy shit in his time. Speaking of the actors, Ossie Davis, who played JFK, was born the same year as the real JFK, so he was the accurate age for playing the part, that being 86 years old. Sadly though, the following year after BubbaHoTep's release, Davis passed away. Number 6, filming. Most of the filming for BubbaHoTep was filmed at an abandoned hospital just outside Los Angeles. The empty premises doubled for the Mud Creek Shady Rest Home. Back in the day, the hospital was used to home patients who were mentally ill, along with homeless people and war vets. However, it was shut down in the 1980s. When filming for BubbaHoTep took place, the building was really run down and falling apart, so the crew would have to really clean it up a bit to make it look like a functional facility. Filming at the location actually worked out perfectly for the production, as they had free range to film there, which would have been ideal considering the movie's tiny budget. And filming took place over a 30-day period. However, if you want to find this building yourself, well, you're not going to be able to, as in 2017 it was destroyed by fire. The irony being, the cabin that was used in the very first Evil Dead movie, another Bruce Campbell film, was also destroyed by fire. I guess movie locations where this chin has visited seem to just combust into flames. It's the chin, I tell ya. Number 5, planned dual narration. So throughout BubbaHoTep, we hear a narration which is kind of like a self-monologue by the Elvis character. It helps us to understand the character, as well as his drive and thought process, and tics and quirks. Although the original idea by the director, Don Coscarelli, was to have 2 narrators, one by Elvis and one by another narrator, a nameless one. Just some mysterious voice that we never find out who it is. And this narrator was actually going to narrate dialogue from the novella, of which would have given the movie a closer connection to its source material. But this other narrator was scrapped and removed from the movie, when Coscarelli's friends saw an early cut of BubbaHoTep and thought that that added narration was pretty terrible. And so just like that, it was gone. Which I think is a good idea. All we need is Elvis's monologue, and that makes the story more personal to him. If there were any more narrators in the movie, it might have felt slightly crowded. Number 4, the effects were a favour. Say what you want to say about BubbaHoTep. Despite its tiny budget, the makeup effects are pretty amazing and look like something you would see from a large-scale Hollywood production. The makeup effects were provided by company K&B Effects Group, and they have been providing effects for movies since the late 80s, including A Nightmare on Elm Street 5, Dances with Wolves, From Dusk Till Dawn, The Chronicles of Narnia, and more recently, The Walking Dead series. But hang on a minute, how could the production hire to use the effects company with such a small budget? Well, according to several sources, K&B Effects Group provided the special effects of the movie to director Don Coscarelli as a favour. Wow, that was really nice of them. When it comes to doing favours for others, some people might lend you a cup of sugar or bail you out of jail, but nope, not K&B Effects Group. They don't go for that cup of sugar nonsense, they will give you rotten, terrifying mummies. The effects in BubbaHoTep really elevate the movie into being something quite spectacular, rather than just a cheap-looking B-movie. Number 3, the trouble with extras. So in BubbaHoTep, there's a flashback sequence where Elvis explains why he gave up fame and riches of the spotlight celebrity life, and pretty much go into hiding posing as an Elvis impersonator. It's a standout moment in the movie, and it's used as a sort of hook to bring in more believability to the premise of Elvis still being alive. However, filming this scene proved to be quite tricky, as in the flashback sequence, we see Elvis as his fictional Sebastian persona performing to an audience. In order to film this scene, round about 100 extras were hired, to fill out Elvis's crowd. However, the extras probably didn't know much about the filming process and how long it can take. And during the filming of that scene, many of the extras lost patience and just simply walked away. By the end of the shoot, most of the extras had left the building, leaving only about 12 extras left. So naturally, because during the shoot so many extras had left, they could only use the shots which showed the most extras. Damn, I guess these extras didn't have extra time or patience. Number 2, planned sequel. So BubbaHoTep ends with a promise that there would be a sequel, Bubba Nosferatu, Curse of the She-Vampires. Seriously, that is the best movie title ever. This was intended to be a joke, but if the ending of Back to the Future has taught us anything, it is, don't tease the audience with a sequel unless you're gonna use it. So many fans were like, hey, where's this sequel that we were promised? This motivated director Don Coscarelli to actually start getting to work on a sequel, although it was actually going to be a prequel. And Paul Giamatti was cast as Colonel Tom Parker. Hey, as long as he was better than Tom Hanks, I'll be down for that. However, in 2007, the production took a tumble when Bruce Campbell left the project over creative differences. It seemed that both Coscarelli and Giamatti were trying to keep the production going and trying to find funding, and even considered casting Ron Perlman as Elvis. And as late as 2013, there was still anticipation that BubbaHoTep could be a franchise, and the sky's the limit with ideas, even going as far as seeing Elvis battling aliens. But sadly, BubbaHoTep is now 21 years old, and we never got a sequel. Well, not in movie format at least. As BubbaHoTep author, Joe Lansdale wrote a sequel novella based on ideas from the unmade sequel, which was called Bubba and the Cosmic Bloodsuckers. And in 2017, IDW would make a mini-series comic book based on the novella. And then the following year in 2018, Dynamite Entertainment made a 4-part comic book crossover, which saw Elvis from BubbaHoTep teaming up with Ash Williams. Yep, 2 Bruce Campbells for the price of 1. So when it comes to sequels of BubbaHoTep, we didn't, but sort of did get some. As a movie though, I think BubbaHoTep does work better as a one and done deal. Number 1, limited release. BubbaHoTep had a very limited release, to say the least. All up, there was only 32 prints of the movie, and they would be screened at selected festivals and events. Even Bruce Campbell did his part by bringing the movie along with him while on tour promoting his book, If Chins Could Kill, Confessions of a B-Movie Actor. Although the movie only made $1.2 million in the box office, only bringing in a profit of $200,000, this limited release actually worked in BubbaHoTep's favour, as it generated much word of mouth and discussion, and its lack of availability added more mystery and intrigue, making it an obscure curiosity. So by the time it came out on DVD, it already reached cult status and was in demand. BubbaHoTep got very positive reviews from critics, who showered it with praise. The movie was praised for its wacky originality and uniqueness, and of course Bruce Campbell's performance. The concept of BubbaHoTep is so strange and absurd, it's hard to not love it, or at least be intrigued by it. I mean, you've got Elvis and JFK fighting a mummy in a retirement home. What's not to love? And not only that, but the movie oddly even has plenty of heart. Now, I can remember hearing about BubbaHoTep for the very first time. The first time it reached Australia was in 2004, 2 years after its initial release, as this really weird, obscure movie came out on DVD and had everyone talking about it. It just came from nowhere. I can vividly remember seeing a DVD advertisement for BubbaHoTep in a movie magazine and just being so confused by the name and thinking, BubbaHoTep? What the flippity flip flip is a BubbaHoTep? But then of course I saw it and I loved it. I think there is definitely room for obscure cinema, and there's a lot of enjoyability from movies that ask the question, what if? In my time, I've spoken about many cult movies, but BubbaHoTep just might be the cultiest of cult movies. It's great. It's honestly a good time, and it's worth watching for, if anything, for seeing Bruce Campbell as an elderly Elvis. That alone makes the movie worthwhile, so I do recommend that you check it out. BubbaHoTep might be about elderly retired life, but there is still plenty of life in this old dog yet. Anyway, I'm Minty, and seriously, we need to see a movie where Elvis battles aliens. Come on guys, make this happen, please. See ya! Oh, I did that dive quite well, I reckon.